Wow. That definitely sounds like a lot. So, what is the real process actually like? And what are some ways we advocate for ourselves without getting overwhelmed or frustrated or maybe even upset?
So the process of getting the letter would involve talking to a person's landlord and then saying, "Hey, is there a form I need filled out or can I just submit the letter?" Then if they have a form, you would submit that to your therapist and then the therapist would fill it out along with their letter and give that back. We should not get frustrated with landlords because the reality is cat pee smells pretty bad and it can be hard to get out of carpets and things like that. So landlords want to make sure that this is only being done for people who really need it. But therapists shouldn't be afraid to write those letters for people. And if they ever are, then that's when they should refer them to Pause for Patrick so we can help out with those kinds of things. And so, again, parents shouldn't be worried that this is going to be anything that is too much to take on. While we wouldn't recommend someone adopt an animal if they don't like animals, the research has shown that animals can make a real difference, particularly for anxiety and depression. And they think it's because when we make eye contact with our dogs or our cats, our brain produces this hormone called oxytocin, which makes us feel good and feel connected. And so that's how the process works once we have it.
Wow. Definitely sounds very, very interesting. And that's why it's important for us to keep going and never give up because it'll definitely get us far in life.
That's right. And when we have an animal to go along with us, we feel like we're not alone. And for those people who have an animal to help take care of, it can help motivate them and make them feel like they're powerful and important and that somebody really cares about them as much as they care about that animal. So having that what we call reciprocal relationship, it can, I don't know, create our increase our efficacy and feeling that we're powerful and strong.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And by the way, from what you see in schools and therapies, I feel like there's something that adults, like maybe teachers or maybe some other students, are kind of missing out on what autistic teens are really struggling with. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. There's so many misconceptions about autism. And that's because, as we have to understand, it's a spectrum disorder. So, just like with vision, some people just need reading glasses and some people are totally blind. And with people on the autistic spectrum, some people are barely impaired and no one would know that they have any kind of disability whatsoever. And other people have more impairment, and particularly in the way they communicate. But people with autism can have a great sense of humor. They can play games like Dungeons and Dragons or other things like that where they can pretend that there's somebody else. They have so many amazing abilities. And so when there are people who think that a person with autism might be really limited, they just don't understand that just because you know a person has autism doesn't mean you know really much of anything about them. And so just like anything else, it's everybody you have to get to know each individual.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's always good to treat people with respect, even those with a neurodiversity. Don't just judge a book by its cover and just understand that everyone is unique and has something special that makes the world unique.
Absolutely.
And I also think that autistic teens, including me, especially those who are also LGBTQIA, are often told to mask or just hide away who they actually are.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people, when we think of a Venn diagram where we have those two circles overlapping each other, there are so many people who are LGBTQIA and particularly those who are gender fluid or gender nonconforming who are also neurodivergent. And there can be a lot of adults who may question them and say, well, do you really know what you think? And do you really know what you feel? And if a person can know when they feel happy and when they feel sad and when they feel scared and when they feel excited, why wouldn't they be able to know who they're attracted to or who they're not attracted to? And accepting the fact that all of these people's feelings right in that moment are legitimate and real. And so if there's a 15-year-old who identifies as genderqueer, meaning they're not really sure which gender they feel like they are, and if they're asexual and aromantic, that's who that person legitimately is in that moment. Parents will sometimes say, well, maybe this is just a phase. And that's kind of demeaning and minimizing the importance of that identity to the person in the moment. If 5 or 10 years later that person feels differently and they're no longer identifying as aro ace and they decided that they want to have a romantic connection, that's okay for that moment. But when we're dealing with any person, if they are saying that if they're identifying as a certain population, we should believe them and honor what they're saying and just be respectful of that and recognize that people who are neurotypical are more likely to identify as genderqueer.
Wow. Definitely sounds very interesting, and that's why it's good to include almost everyone, even in like a friend group, instead of just leaving them out. Because, like I said, everyone has something that makes them unique and special.
Absolutely. Without question, that's true.
Yeah. And I also heard that you are a coach and a fantasy football enthusiast.
That's correct. So I've coached lacrosse for about 17 years. I took a little bit of time off when my kids were little so that I could spend more time with them. But now I'm coaching at the high school level again because my older son is a freshman in high school. And fantasy football takes up way too much of my time and my brain power. But I did win one championship this year. So I had 3 leagues, and one of my leagues, my buddy and I, that we share the team, and we were the champions. So that's something I really love to do to blow off a little bit of steam and not take life too seriously.
Wow, definitely sounds interesting. So, about fantasy football, could you explain a little more about what fantasy football actually is and how it works?
Yes. So in fantasy football, each team drafts different players at the start of the season, and they follow the statistics of those players competing against the other teams in that league. And it allows people to have a rooting interest in games, even if their home team. So let's say the Bears are having a terrible season and they're not going to win a lot of games. But if I have a fantasy team, I can be rooting for players on the Tennessee Titans and the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm rooting for my specific players. And when they get yards or get catches or score touchdowns, my team scores points. And so, therefore, I have this rooting interest and makes all the games kind of a little bit more exciting to see when players are doing well, either they're on my team or they're on an opponent's team. And so, it makes me interested in the entire NFL.
Yeah, I hope so too. And now we're going to keep this going. And I really think that being a therapist, a parent, and a coach is a lot, especially for someone like you.
It sure is. And it's hard to make sure we have as much time as we would like for every individual thing, which is part of the reason why I stepped away from coaching for several years, because we can't have too many priorities. But now that my boys are a little bit older, it's I can balance things a little bit better. But when we are feeling overwhelmed because we have too many things on our plate, then we need to talk to the people that we love and care about and look at our values and try to decide which thing do I put more time in, which thing do I put less time in. There's never a right or wrong answer with this, but we have to make sure we're not feeling overwhelmed. So whenever we're feeling overwhelmed, we have to say, what, even though I love doing all these things, love the coaching, love being a therapist, love being a dad, but the most important one for me is being a dad. So sometimes I might have to take a few less clients. And that's always really hard for me when people will call me up and they'll say, hey, can I get a session with you? And I might have to say, I'm sorry, I'm totally full up on clients right now. And then I refer them to some other great therapists. But we always want to be able to say yes to everyone. And in life, we can't say yes to everything. So we have to figure out what are the things that are most important to us and dedicate our time to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Sometimes there are things that I really want, but sometimes there are also things I need, and I just have to decide which one would be more important.
Yep. And that's the challenge. Fortunately, I'd rather live in a world where I have more things that I want to do and not enough time to do it than be really bored because there's not enough to do. And I never get bored because there's always more things that I want to do than I have time for.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. So, what advice would you give autistic teens, including me, who are trying to take care of their mental health while still dealing with school pressure and expectations to be able to fit in with others.
I think the key is ideally trying to find a community of people who really understand you, who have appropriate expectations for you, and to let people know when you need to build in breaks. A lot of people don't understand how exhausting it can be for a person on the autistic spectrum to go through a school day and to feel like they have to mask and not show everyone when they have desires to do things like stimming. And so they might need some time, whether it's during their school day to just relax and to be able to do things like sit and maybe engage in a show that they really like or pace around or do some things like that. And when they get home, they may need some time to just decompress and slow down. So don't be mad at yourself if you need those things. A lot of the students that I work with on the autistic spectrum, they just really want connection. And sometimes people don't realize because they may have an affect, meaning their voice tone and their facial expressions don't maybe make them seem as friendly as they really are. And so the key is getting to know people over a longer period of time by joining clubs and activities where you can really where people can get to know you so they know your facial expressions, they know when you're really interested in things. And so the more that we build that community where people know us and they know what to expect from us and they can give us a break, that really helps.
Wow. Thanks for the awesome advice. I definitely agree. It's good to find people who actually understand you, people who actually get who you are, and it's always good to have people in your lives who actually let you take your time and express yourself rather than masking away who you actually are. I think it's really great to know that there are people who actually understand you in life.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's very, very great if you ask me. I'm very glad that you are here as a school social worker, a therapist in a private practice, the host of a mental health podcast, and the mental health advisor for Pause for Patrick to help people get together with therapy pets to help them through tough times and just finding people who actually understand and get neurodiverse people, including me.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm really just grateful for every person that I've ever gotten the chance to work with. And I love meeting people like you because there's no greater gift a person can give you than their trust. And a lot of my, particularly my neurodivergent clients, have been really open and connecting with me and sharing their life and their trust with me. And they have made my life so much better. And I really admire them. And I can't tell you how much I admire what you're doing, sharing your life and your experience with people. So, again, people can realize what they can accomplish. That autism spectrum disorder is not a reason why somebody can't do everything that they dream about doing. And so you are an inspiration with what you're putting out here.
Wow. You know what? You're actually quite the inspiration too, if I have to be honest.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm very glad we were able to speak about our personal lives and our personal careers. This was a lot of fun.
I think so too. And if you ever want me to come back, I'd be happy to do it.
Oh, you bet I would. In